again. This is Doc Rotten from Horror News Radio and Gruesome Magazine. With me tonight is the one and only Christopher G. Moore. He is here to talk about a little film called Mayhem from Joe Lynch. This is going to be fun. Christopher, how you doing?
I'm doing great, and I don't consider this to be a little film. It's a big film to me.
It's a big film. Give us a synopsis for Mayhem.
It's sort of a story about a virus that spreads throughout an office complex, and it causes all the white-collar workers to act out their worst impulses. So I consider it sort of to be like a viral version of The Purge, you know, with hints of Die Hard and elements of like a high-end office space. So it has a lot of these different elements of great things, and it's all mashed together into a beautiful dessert of mayhem. It's a really lovely film that I think, to me, shows how Joe Lynch has gone from making films like Wrong Turn 2 and then like, you know, diving more into the action realm with Everly to this film. You can really see his sort of like deliverance as a director, to where he's finally at this point where he's made this film that's a perfect encapsulation of everything he's learned as a filmmaker, and he's thrown it into this and made a really fun, great film with, you know, with some fun action, some great actors in it. Stephen Young, who people might know of him from The Walking Dead, got his eye knocked out. Here he gets to knock the eyes out. And he's the lead actor in this. He's the main guy. He's sort of like who, you know, right before this virus hits, he finds out these people are trying to screw him over because he sort of made his way up through the company ranks. And so he also knows that this viral thing, the last time it happened in an office building, a guy got away with killing people, and they let him off because they said the virus sort of, you know, does not make him liable for what he does. So he used it as an excuse to go after all the people that are trying to screw him over in the company. And he sort of teams up with this woman who he sort of denied some legal help for. So this unlikely partnership with her, and they sort of like make their way throughout this building. So it's, you know, it's a Die Hard meets The Purge meets 28 Days Later with a hint of Office Space.
A little Belko experiment in there too. Yeah, Samara Weaving is his co-star, and we recently talked about her in the Babysitter. How was she in this film?
Oh, she's great. To be honest, I think this is the first time that I've seen her in anything, or at least the first time I ever actually, you know, came away from the film wanted to see her in more stuff. She reminds me of the girl that played that was in The Wolf of Wall Street and played Harley Quinn in that Suicide Squad movie. Mm-hmm. Margot Robbie or whatever her name is. She's almost like a more sort of girl next door version of her, but in a good way. She's really great in this, especially when she sort of goes the full badass. Because I mean, the thing about this film is you can it's sort of like what Quentin Tarantino does with his films, to where you can sort of tell the influences that he had when it came to characters or scenes or any of that kind of stuff. Not that they're totally aping it or you know, I think like even people like Martin Scorsese and other people say that you sort of, as a filmmaker, you steal from the best, and so you put your own spin on it. And he sort of does this. And there's elements of Pulp Fiction to some degree, just the way the characters are. There's these certain bloody things that happen, but they sort of come off looking kind of badass and cool throughout it. And there's a lot of really interesting, quirky characters that exist in this building. Like the HR guy is almost like the Grim Reaper of sorts. You know, he's sort of like the sort of like the cleanup guy in Pulp Fiction to some degree, to where he gets people out once they're fired. So there's a lot of really great actors in this. Stephen Young, I think, I love seeing him in this because you get to see him in a different type of role. It involves a lot of narration. It involves a lot of different elements of emotion from him, from when he's like this sort of top dog to being the guy who's getting the shit bit out of him. So yeah, it's a really fun film and some really great acting performances by everybody who's involved with it.
Now you've kind of colored it as more of an action piece. Is there? But you have mentioned a lot of blood. Is there enough blood and gore for the horror fans?
Oh yeah, I mean there's a part where she's going around with like this nail gun and just shooting people with a nail gun. So yeah, there's a lot of bloody parts. There's a lot of stuff with people's getting their heads bashed in. A lot of horrible things that happen to people that make you sort of cringe. So it's not like a normal action film by any stretch of the imagination. It's definitely very bloody. Sure, there's some of the violence that sort of has like a humoristic aspect to it. But, it definitely doesn't shy away from the blood. That's for sure. Cause you have this viral thing causes people to sort of like up their emotions. And if they're on caffeine, if they're on cocaine, that just, or if they're like anxiety medication, it makes their impulses even worse. So they'll end up like, knocking your eyeballs out, just going crazy. Then later on, there's a scene where it turns into almost like Lord of the Flies meets Mad Max, where the people in the office are just like dressing up in weird ways. And it sort of goes to this sort of like area that just like, oh man, this is just when you think you've got everything figured out, it goes a little bit further. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's definitely not. It definitely doesn't shy away from the blood, that's for sure. So yeah, if you're kind of worried that it's just like a run-of-the-mill action film, it's not. It definitely has, like I mentioned, it has that sort of purge element of it, Green Room, any of those type of films that involve a lot of violence. Because there's parts where you can laugh at the violence, and there's parts where it's done very balletic in a John Woo way, and then other parts where it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened.
Well, Steven Yeun has a lot of fans as he played Glenn on The Walking Dead, and here he is the lead. How does he work as a lead? Do you see him as a leading man in future films?
I would hope so. I think watching his performance in this film, I really would be interested to see where he goes from here. I hope he gets more different types of roles, especially as an Asian actor, to where he's not playing to the normal type that you'd see those type of characters in other films. And this one, his ethnicity doesn't really matter. It's just him as a character. And I think I'd love to see him in more strong roles. And I think this, if anything, this should be his calling card for trying to get other roles, because he does so many different things in this film. You get to see so many sides of him as an actor. Hopefully there's other roles out there for him that can sort of show these sides of him that we don't just see him as, as the driver from The Walking Dead.
Yeah, but we don't want to repeat Glenn. Yeah, and he sure loves that coffee cup. So let's get you.
yeah. Don't steal his coffee cup. He'll go crazy. That's like the red stapler of this film.
Oh, it is the red stapler. Let's get your score 1 to 5 and your favorite scene from Mayhem.
I will give it a 5 out of 5. Wow. I'm at this point now where I'm not as extremely critical of movies like I used to be in the past, but I really didn't see anything much wrong with this film. I loved every element of it, from the opening scene where they do a lot of really cool visual stuff, to the action, to the humor, to just the visual sense. I mean, this was to me like a pulchritudinous display of like balletic violence, dark comedy, and just over the top visuals. I think it's a really sort of it should be a calling card for Joe Lynch in the future. He really should get lots of awards for this film, because it's just a fun film. As for favorite scene, there's somebody, I guess it would have to be when they go into full badass mode. And Samara Weaving's character has like the staple gun, and they're like, and they're just going through, and they're having to face off with the people in the office that have been given the ultimatum to kill them, and so they're all dressed up almost in like an Office Space version of Mad Max. I think that's probably my favorite scene. But there's a lot of great scenes that I could go back to, and a lot of it has to do with the great script, the cinematography, the actors. I mean, I think everything just came together where I just love the hell out of this film, and I hope more people go see it.
Excellent. Well, Christopher, thank you for another great review. Let's say goodnight.
Good night.
Be sure to visit GruesomeMagazine.com to listen to the other Gruesome podcasts, Hard News Radio, and Decades of Horror. Also check out the Gruesome Magazine Quarterly, available in digital and print-on-demand format. Gruesome Magazine.